Hello and welcome to Big Bad Books, the podcast where we be reading them and you be listening to them. You don't have to read them. You don't have to read them either, Declan.
No, I don't.
Just me this time.
I don't.
I suppose the them in the tagline implies that it covers the scope of multiple books. So it's true that we are reading them so they don't have to, because you will also be reading the next one, definitely. I'm not reading another book in my life.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what we decide.
When we
the
do
book is.
Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead next season, I've heard you're down for all 12 million pages.
Could not. You literally could not pay me to read that.
I think we should do The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged at some point, but I do think it's much too long for this format. Like, they're both egregiously long texts, and we'd have to have a real discussion about, like, we couldn't do a chapter an episode. I'd jump out of my own body. Straight back to heaven.
Every episode would just open with me weeping.
So in the last one, he was a cunt. Boring. He cares about himself. No, look, we're back, and it's Ready Player 2 week here on Big Bad Book. Once again, Big Bad Book singular sounds very good. We like to start this now well-established show, which you can share with your good friends with you. The powerful link shame.city/books.
Yeah.
Or review us, please, because we're a brand new show. Shame.city/book review. 5 stars. Thanks. You can expect now every week this casual chat, and then we launch headlong, like Lucy diving through the moth-cladded cupboard into Narnia City. Population Tumnus. Don't mind if I do.
As well as a whole host of goblins and ghouls and
weirdos.
fellas.
They're weirdos in Narnia. We're hurtling into the cupboard of recaps.
Yeah, what? And do you want to just say, I don't know, because normally you want to say this, who you are?
Oh, I'm Isaac. But if you don't know that by now, you've got to get used to it.
Okay.
I've got this kind of energy. Angular. What's yours?
Pardon? Very flat.
Is it? Very cool.
Very steady. Every now and then, the gentlest undulation.
Cool.
You know, I'm a very level-headed guy.
That's true.
That's what you and everyone is always saying.
Yeah.
So I'm Declan, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what happened last time.
Do, because I don't
on the show and in the book.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there were references aplenty. Ernie, he'd been Googling the number 7 like no one's business, trying to solve this goddamn shard riddle.
That's been at the front of everyone's minds for as much as 5 pages now.
Let me tell you, we've paid about as much attention to it as Ernest has, as Wade has, which is none. But he decided he was going to go headlong into trying to solve it. So he thought, look, it's obviously about this guy, by which I mean girl.
Yeah. Kira.
Og's ex-wife.
Yeah, the siren.
Well, dead wife.
Yeah.
Who's the siren. But even though she was Og's wife, Halliday, he wanted.
Yeah. I think they were all maybe childhood friends as well. Like, there's a whole lot.
It's very incestuous.
A whole lot.
So he was like, cool, I'm going to go everywhere that she ever was.
Yeah. Not just the public places.
No. In fact, specifically not those places. Yeah. But what he did instead was he went to all these planets that were based on all the things she liked. And because she was a woman, she liked normie shit. So she liked Sonic. Yeah. She liked
Sonic
Lord of the Rings. So he went to all these places, and it turns out, like, no, there was nothing in any of them. So what he did instead is he did what any great puzzle solver would do, which is he set up a big email inbox.
And $1 billion reward. Remember that time we got stuck on twitch.tv/shamecity, and now it's 1Y, and we put up $1 billion reward.
It was great.
The answers came thick and fast.
So so he set that up, and he also had to set up, obviously, an unspecified, but let me tell you, very comprehensive set of email filters to get rid of all of the bullshit and the lies, the bogus emails. So he sat there, and then not really much else happened. He started sort of like perving on his girl again, Art 3 Miss.
Yep.
She was reenacting a movie in the middle of the night.
Just to be clear as well, like you or I couldn't do that in the Oni because we are crucially lacking one key component of the puzzle.
And it wouldn't be the robes of Anorak, would it be?
Yeah.
They give him the super user
He's
abilities.
He's got a bunch of these SUAs.
And let me tell you, it seems like every chapter we're finding a new one.
You've got to keep reminding the reader as well, I always think.
Robes of Anorak, they had a hell of a lot of functionality.
When you read Lord of the Rings, any of the 3 of them, because of course he intended them as one big book originally, everyone was like, J.R.R., sort yourself out.
No one's going to be doing that.
Bother with. You can't have a man sing about elves every 4 pages and expect this to go on for a
disguise it
billion
as
page.
3 books, and people will laugh.
But the thing is that what he had to do, because the One Ring in Lord of the Rings is super. It's in the title, right? He's the Lord of that ring, but also a bunch of others. You have to keep reminding them of Sauron's super user abilities, and so Frodo and Sam would be like, "Oh, Mr. Frodo, I don't know if we're going to get out of this one," and he'd say, "Don't worry, Sam. The super user abilities of my One
given
Ring
to me
of
by
power,
the ring of which I'm the Lord,
allow me to go invisible." It's good to remind the reader, because it's easy to lose track of how powerful these good MacGuffins are.
Now, what happens is, right at the very end of the chapter, he gets a little notification pop up, and it's in his non-bullshit, non-bogus SSOSS email inbox. And he opens it up, and it's from someone and
pretty cool, Lohengrin.
And she, let me tell you, she's a woman sometimes.
Yes, sometimes
mid-sentence, she becomes James Spader.
She has a YouTube channel where she's either James Spader or, as I remember it, Billie Jean. But I think it's not Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. I think it's whatever that's. I don't know. I didn't
Billie Jean King.
I don't know what he was talking about.
But
so she's part of a group called the Low Five, which is a riff on the High Five, which are the 5 people who gunted their way to success in RP1.
And they do this show, and Wade likes this show.
He owes a 0.
I believe the same is in Lohengrin. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And Wade's a bit of a fan of this show. And now he's not just a fan because it's one of the more balanced, one of the less anti-Wade Gunter chats. He's developed just a little bit of a crush on Lohengrin.
He's got the digihorn.
Now, one thing that we do need to make clear is that he could, at any moment, use the robes of Anorak and activate one of the super user abilities to violate basically every single barrier of personal decency and privacy.
And the law.
And, well, don't worry about the law. That doesn't really apply to him. To find out exactly who Lohengrin is, because their identity is a secret. But he hasn't done that.
Well fucking done. I listened back to our last episode, and it struck me that when we read that bit, we didn't actually applaud. So maybe we'd like to just do that.
I think possibly
well done, Wade. You didn't violate basic morality and international
for this one person, because he does do it to everyone else.
Yeah, including Artemis, who he said he had too much respect to do it to, and then just did it anyway. It doesn't really matter. Never mind.
So, Lohengrin says, listen, I found a shard.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's where she went to school, and Wade's a bit bit obvious, really, isn't it?
Too obvious
for me to go to. So I believe the last thing he did was he used the super user abilities of the Robes of Anorak to pinpoint Lohengrin's exact location, and made himself invisible, and then transported straight to her for free. And he didn't have to pay to do that.
Pay a $.
I don't know if you know how that is. That's because of it's one of the
sewers of the Roa.
One of the super user abilities of the Robes of Anorak.
Now, this chapter, you noted in that comprehensive recap that the last one was one of the first times they've really engaged with the 7 shards of the Siren Soul riddle in earnest.
Yeah.
Earnest. There's something in that.
Oh, we'll reuse that later.
That unfortunately is gone again for this chapter. So I just want to head that off. If you were hoping to learn any more, no,
he was
not
literally
this time.
going right there.
This whole chapter actually takes place in no time at all, right? So that's one of the first weird things. The theme for this episode is morality. For reasons that will become clear.
Oh, God.
But a potential other theme could have been just when. When does this happen? Why did we write a whole chapter in the time it takes to teleport and just arrive and just sort of stand and look? Nothing's actually happened in the plot.
Okay.
At all. At the beginning and the end of this chapter are functionally the same place. It's like one of those side quests that people are like, oh, you can do it if you want. And you're like, okay, but does it give... No, it doesn't really give you... Is it a good story? No, it's not a good story. Any good character? No. There's none. All right, I probably won't read that one.
This reminds me, and perhaps, you'll be able to tell me whether or not this is correct, about a time that my family and we were driving down, we were going on holiday in France, this village in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And we were driving, it's 7 hours or something once you get to Calais until you're there. So we were driving through the night. and we were on just the emptiest road, had been for about an hour. And the sat nav pings, and it tells my dad he's got to like take the next exit.
Right.
And he's like, what the fuck have I got to take this exit for? Like, it's just a straight road.
Yeah.
But it's like, you've got to take this next exit. And he's like, oh, okay, like, fine. So he kind of pulls over into the right-hand lane, because they drive on the right over there.
That's weird, isn't it?
Pulls off, takes him back towards the way that we just come from.
Okay.
Through a toll booth, and then connected him straight back onto
so
the exact
funny.
same road.
That's a fucking
honestly
played.
We were
That's so good.
we were crying. It was like my dad wanted to fling the fucking sat.
I think that's a good analogy. I think this whole chapter took a kind of metaphorical toll on me. Reading it was a kind of toll booth of the
one
mind.
that we now are to share with the listeners. Cool.
If you attempted to teleport to a location inside the oasis that was already occupied by an object or another avatar...
Are you joking? Is this just going to be about...
The system would automatically adjust your arrival coordinates to the closest unoccupied location.
Wow.
That actually isn't super relevant to the chapter. It only is relevant insofar as he doesn't just appear sort of on Lohengrin. Yeah, like clipping in and out where you can see like their teeth through the inside of their head, as is the want of video games. But I highlighted that because, first of all, it's the start of your chapter, and it's one of the key... I don't know if Chuck talks about this, maybe we'll find out in the middle. Start with a very boring
some of the boring facts. Yeah.
Because you don't want people to be too excited too early.
Yeah.
Because then you've peaked.
What you want to do as a writer who is,
who's numbering their chapters so clearly 0005,
and who is plying their craft in a genre such as this kind of like futuristic sci-fi adventure, is when there's a piece of technology that it might be interesting to know how that might work, such as how he seems to have an AI armored spider coffin that can evade all capture. Like, you just say it does, don't worry. But then when there's something like so boring as to be not even just assumed, as to just obviously be the case, you want to spell it out. You just want to make sure that's spelled
it's world building is what you're saying.
We're back to JRR again, aren't we?
He loved it. He loved it. So basically, he arrives not on or in Lohengrin's avatar space, but near it.
Wow.
Fascinating.
That is good to know.
And he sees her, she's wearing her trademark Legend of Billie Jean attire. I don't know what that is.
No.
I won't be looking it up. She didn't notice my arrival. This is such a great fucking sentence. I was so happy when I read this because I was weirdly not looking forward to this chapter.
No.
And then I dived in, I was like, no, this is fun. She didn't notice my arrival because my avatar was invisible. Her eyes were also closed. It's so good.
That's amazing.
Really very
That's
good.
so powerful.
It turns out her eyes are closed because what she's doing is like she's not really there. Like, she's not looking around as if she's in her avatar's body. She's actually just got like her avatar.
She's
parked.
AFK.
Yeah, she's kind of AFK, but like, yeah, I guess that would be how it would work in the Oasis, because she's AFK from like where her body is, but she's also got her body again in a different place. Like, it's quite confusing.
Is that not just a super user ability? I
It's not.
I thought that would be restricted to someone wearing the robes of Anorak.
You'd think. But basically, so he's looking at her and he's like...
I was invisible and her eyes were closed.
So good.
It's such a great detail.
So they're standing there in this place called Middletown, which is a PvP zone, player versus player. So it's like, it'd be pretty risky to just leave your avatar unattended. So he figures that she's got like a small like picture-in-picture thing of what the avatar would be seeing, but she's doing something else.
Okay.
He wants to find out what she's doing, but first of all, he looks around and he says where they are, which is not quite where he expected she would be. They're not inside the place she said the shard was. Okay. They've gone a little bit away.
Okay,
we were 3 blocks north of that location, the Barnett residence where Kira was from, in the world-famous wood-panelled basement of Ogden Morrow's childhood home. And he reflects on a really extended tangent about, wow, God, what was it like to be in that wood-panelled basement playing Dungeons and Dragons and dozens of other tabletop role-playing games that we haven't got the rights to mention, perhaps.
Great games like Dungeons and Dragons and other great games just like that.
He talks about how, in a sort of roundabout way, he grew up there too, in this place.
Well, he didn't.
Because apparently, in a detail that I don't remember being mentioned in Ready Player One, but it probably was, and it would have been too dull to remember, the basement that he and H used to hang out in was loosely based on this one.
What do you mean the basement was loosely based on.
It's become the kind of platonic form of the cool basement.
How is a basement loosely based?
Well, I tell you,
on another basement.
If I saw 3 beat-up couches arranged in a U-shape in front of an old RCA television, which was half buried by a Betamax VCR, a Pioneer Laserdisc player, and several different classic home video game consoles, I'd be like, "That's Og's basement." Hello.
Yeah, though, that is now that you describe it, that is like the basement. You get it.
He reflects now on not just just childhood, I suppose, and he's thinking like, what was that like? Because that's when he and H, whose relationship he's been pining for, he's like 19, I think, or something. Wow. Yeah. But he's as we know from that very emotional chapter, maybe 2 chapters ago, he feels like he's been sort of drifting apart from his friends.
Well, he has. They don't like him.
He's a cunt. Yeah. And he's reflecting on how things used to be between him and H, hanging out in the Og basement, just vibing, just loving life.
Oh.
My life had been a lot harder back then, but in retrospect, it now also seemed a hell of a lot simpler. Fair enough, right?
Yep.
We all pine for that. He looks at Lohengrin, whose avatar is still just sort of T-posed, and eyes are kind of like bluffeting around. That's not a word. Under the lids, like she's in REM sleep. And what this means is that she's in a chat room, of course.
That's
how
you'd
convey that. I was about to make my avatar visible and alert her to my presence, but then a better idea occurred to me.
Oh, go on.
I selected Lohengrin's avatar on my display and pulled up a list of her active communication processes. It told me that she was currently logged into a private chat room, private chat room,
but
called Cyberdelia, which was hosted, the private chat room, by a 59th level avatar named Castagear, who is from Highlander, apparently.
Sure.
If Lohengrin really had found one of the shards, she might be in that private chat room discussing it with her friends in private.
You're stressing her.
If she was bullshitting me, she might be in there discussing that instead. And my robes let me enter private chat rooms uninvited and undetected, allowing me to eavesdrop on their occupants.
Oh wow, that's good. That's both handy and moral.
It is. Ding, it ticks both boxes. So into the private chat room he fucking goes.
Wow. Without so much as a second.
Not a quibble.
Because at the end of the last chapter, I don't know if you remember from the recap, he was talking about how he wasn't perving on her.
Could never.
No, because he respects / horns for her.
Yeah, you never catch Wade creeping.
No,
apart from
when he's creeping on women.
The reason I've chosen to call this chapter morality is quite complex and multifaceted. Thank you for asking. But one of them is just the inconsistency of Wade's moral view, which is to say that he hasn't got one.
Yeah,
we're clearly not being set up to think of Wade as a paragon of morality in any real way. That seems to be Artemis. Although she too is criticised. Like, it's unclear to me where Wade's criticism of Artemis ends and Ernest's begins. Or if indeed they are to be thought of as separate entities, because although Artemis she's getting dunked on for being part of things called, like, What If the World Wasn't Starving to Death Foundation. And he's like, classic.
Women, eh?
What, you had to travel to the war zone? You didn't just Skype in? Fucking hell. Like, it's very unclear and inconsistent, but at the same time Wade wants to be like, oh yeah, but I gave away these Onis at the cheapest price that the market would possibly accommodate.
Listen, people were starving on the African continent, only had to pay $199.99 for their Oni, and when they're in the Oni they can pretend to eat food. It'll really feel like eating food, if they remember that.
I gave my good GSS programmers the option to put in the coupon code Third World to get 10% off their OACs. Now, he's in this chat room. Did I mention it's private? Cyberdelia was a multi-level just picture this. This is description. A multi-level warehouse space filled with archaic, late 20th century technology and retro-futurist decor. Oddly adorned mannequins, payphones, rollerblade ramps and air hockey tables were scattered around the club, and its walls were covered with graffiti urging its denizens to, quote, hack the planet.
Hang on.
Hack the planet.
Sorry, that is very cool. I should have reacted more.
You should have been like, wow.
I was just stuck a little bit on what the word retro-futurist means from the perspective of someone who is in the future.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it feels like...
Does it just move forwards?
No, it feels like Ernest is using it from a present-day perspective.
So it's just like
but
1950s.
He just slipped it in a weird anachronistic way to just... just to give off. It's just vibes. It doesn't matter if that means anything.
When I recognised the old techno song playing on the sound system, Cowgirl by Underworld, if you were wondering. Maybe you want to listen to that after the show.
Cowgirl by Underworld. Yeah, I think I know it anyway.
I made the connection and smiled. It's a reference.
Oh,
this was a recreation of the underground cyberpunk nightclub featured in the 1995 film. Let's say it together. Hackers.
Hackers.
Remember?
Yeah. Yes.
So it's good. I was worried when he got there that this would be like a new location that Ernest had to think of, but fortunately he didn't
already
have to
has
out
a
too
complete
much.
precedence elsewhere.
You could just sort of YouTube that scene and be like, okay, what can I see?
That's what that looks like.
I can see some
and
late
in a
20th
way,
century tech.
a picture is better than description, and video is just lots of pictures.
That's
so if a picture is 1,000 words, motion picture, that's dictionaries, that's
1,000
tone.
words a second.
So if anything, he's just speeding up the process.
Now, basically, inside this club, in a slightly odd, it's a slightly eccentric place to have a meeting because they're not clubbing; they're just sort of sitting around.
No, but these are eccentric people.
Yeah, I guess they are.
To them, this is probably normal.
This is the low 5. The O is a 0, and they are these people. We've got I've forgotten her name already. Lohengrin.
Zero Lengrin.
Yeah, Castigear, Rizzo, Lilith, and Wukong.
Rizzo?
Yes, that one. It's that one. It's the one you think it's going to be. You are so full of shit, Lo, the one named Wukong said in a deep voice. Even more than usual, which is saying something. His avatar was a tall half-man, half-monkey, which explained the name. Sun Wukong was a character from Chinese mythology, known as the Monkey King. I've not included these character descriptions for entertainment's sake, but because I think it will be important to keep track of them, because I'm going to assume they're protagonists.
Oh, they're probably going to be really heavily involved. Yeah. I doubt we'll just see them and then leave them.
Castigear is the chat room's enormous host, which makes it sound like they've got a couple of different size hosts. And he's leaning against an iron girder with his massive arms folded across his chest.
Are you allowed to just choose to be any size you want within the...
It's a good question.
Like the idea that most people choose to just be normal size, and then the Castigear is the only one who's like, I'm gonna be a fucking giant.
You pay for the DLC that doubles your girth.
He's just there like Optimus Prime.
He was a human male with ebony skin and a giant frohawk that added at least a foot to his already impressive height.
Okay.
I personally don't hear the phrase ebony skin very often in literature of the contemporary age, but
no.
I don't know, maybe that's me not reading widely enough.
Yeah, and then not followed by the phrase a frohawk.
He wore a brightly coloured dashiki and a long curved sword in an ornate scabbard, just like the character of the same name in the original Highlander film. Okay. Very cool. Then there's Lilith. She's basically going for a turn of the century edgy emo look, and she says in a way that people often do, of course the ignorant males doubt you, she said, because basically they're talking about Lohengrin's like, I found this thing, and they're like, oh fucking, as if you found that thing that's worth $1 billion.
And she's like,
but
no,
the ignorant males are like that, but the
girl boss, gaslight.
the girl boss, the live love gaslighters are like, of course the ignorant males doubt you, but I believe you, sister. So do I, Lo, Rizzo added, popping her bubblegum. Her avatar's inspiration made me grin again. The character with the same name in the movie version of Grease. A young Stockard Channing wearing a black motorcycle jacket. And
she wasn't even young in the movie. What do you mean a young Stockard Channing?
But this Rizzo, because you can't say this is derivative, it's not derivative if it's from two things. That, we can agree.
She
had a touch of Columbia from Rocky Horror with fishnet stockings and a glittery gold top.
I was hoping more Rizzo the Rat.
So basically, yeah, they're having this chat and discussing, like, you know, is this real? Have you really found anything? And one of them's like, I bet, you know, you've emailed him. He's not even going to check. He's probably got all these filters set up to look for bogus emails. And Lohengrin's like, no, he'll check mine because he's a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And there's this whole, like, kind of like, you know, she's boasting about his subscription, and her friends are like punching her arm, being like,
she actually, I thought you were doing a bit.
No, this is the story of Ready Player 2 minus Klein.
I'm sorry to hear that. No, go on, please.
So they are having this conversation. She's like, no, trust me, like he'll get it. We're kindred.
He's a Patreon subscriber.
One of them, Lilith, raises a good point. She said, hold on. What's to stop Parzival from taking it, referring to the secret siren soul shard, whatever the fuck it is, and teleporting away without paying you a dime? Remember, it was $1 billion. Parzival would never do that.
What? Well, hang on a minute.
Lilith is not having it. He's a rich nutjob who acts like a total douchebag on social media, Lilith said. He also likes to hunt and kill his detractors for sport, remember? You shouldn't trust him. You guys are so cynical, Lohengrin said. Have a little faith.
Oh, Lohengrin, no.
It's a good argument.
Your friends are trying to help you.
She is going to record her conversation with Parzival. That's her one sort of concession to potentially getting scammed.
I don't want to try and
preempt
something that might happen here, but it's not going to be the case, is it, that one of the Robes of Anorak's super user abilities is
he can
block her recording so that she can't.
I mean, he could just block her from the whole game, and then she'd never be able to talk to these people.
He could kill her right here, right now. He could kill them all.
Remember, while all this is happening, because it is important that Parzival Wade is just standing there.
He is,
He's just perving on these young people's chat.
He's jacking it.
It's a private chat.
He is jacking it. He fucking loves this shit.
He for sure doesn't indicate that he doesn't get off on it. Which I personally would take pains to do. If people were accusing me of being invisible all the time, I'd say, yeah, but I don't get off on it. Needs must.
We gotta do a song about how we don't get off on being invisible.
Now, the tone of the conversation shifts somewhat because they start to realise that, like, Lohengrin, she's not fucking about. Like, this is serious. She believes, and they have reason to trust her because she seems smart. She's the leader of the Low Five, the Oza Zero still. She is trustworthy, and if she believes that she's found this thing, then they're like, okay, maybe this is true. What would you do with the money? Like, $1 billion is crazy. It's an insane amount of money. I thought you'd never ask, she replied. First, I'm going to buy a big house in Columbus for all of us to live in together. It's going to have a big kitchen. It's always full of food. We'll each have our own room, and in the basement we'll have our own private classic video game arcade.
It's going to be based on Og's basement.
She paused to take in a large breath of air. Just breathing.
Okay.
I'll also make sure our new crib has the fastest Oasis connection money can buy, she went on. Then once it's ready, I'll fly you all up to it. We're all going to grow old there together, and we'll never have to depend on anyone else ever again. Now, I included this because it's like, that's quite nice. That's just a nice idea that she has.
Yeah.
It's a little bit... It's a little bit forward, specific.
It's a bit forward to just sort of tell people, when I get $1 billion, you're going to come and die in a house with me.
In the arcade. But this chokes them all up, and they're like, Castiga's like, seriously? You do that? And she's like, you're my only friends in the world, basically. You're my family. And we learn that her mum's died, and so, like, since then... they truly are family. They all start kind of tearing up. It's actually like quite a sweet, emotional moment. It strikes me that these are only possible when they exclude Wade.
Yeah.
Because he's so unlikable as a character. Although, in the movie version of this, we've got to have like the camera
this scene
on
is
these
going to be
kids,
20
and then it
minutes
pans
long.
back to see Wade just like...
furiously smashing away.
Oh, just powerful, powerful imagery. They... you know, in the way that these cool scenes do, they can't be emotional for too long.
Do you just love that this conversation is so long and he's just standing there?
It's like 5 pages that he's just standing observing.
So dumb.
He watches all this, and he's like touched by it as well because they're all like on the verge of tears. But one of them, you know, in that classic kind of Stranger Things writing style where you've got to get out of the scene. It's like there's an emotional bit.
One of them has to be like,
"Come on, stupid!"
Yeah,
and they're like, "Yeah,
bag.
oh fucking yeah, bro, yeah, it's cool. Yeah. I wasn't crying." They have that kind of vibe, and Wade says, "I was suddenly filled." Just imagine like witnessing this for a moment before I tell you what he says. He does say that he's got kind of choked up by this because he's like, what a pure expression of love. Like these people, really, this is the best of what his technology is about.
Wade can't imagine giving anything to anyone else.
He can't.
No.
But like...
not even the $1 billion promised.
It'd be so funny if he tries to screw out of this $1 billion. I'm so excited. It doesn't happen in this chapter because, as I said, no time really elapses in the main plot. But just think about this for a moment. Wade is watching, having been in this position himself, right, where like his friends and his family were chosen when he made forays into the digital world and found people who shared his interests and shared his like, you know, slightly social outcast kind of vibe. He's watching these people who are slightly younger than him, I think, go through the same thing and talk really earnestly and openly about real experiences, and that has got to be the only good thing that the Oasis is possible for. Like that's the best thing it could do.
Yeah.
And he watches that, and this is what he thinks. I was suddenly filled with an overwhelming desire to find out who these people were in real life.
Oh!
for a normal Oasis user, learning this would have been impossible. But for me, it was as simple as selecting all of their avatars on my HUD.
This again.
Then I instructed the system to scan each of their Oasis accounts and display any obvious similarities or connections between them. It informed me that the 5 were all either 19 or 20 years old in age. Years old in age is just a very cool phrase. And that all 5 of them had graduated from the same Oasis public school on Ludus 2 a few years ago. And then I think OPS #1126 is maybe a school or a year. I don't know.
Yeah,
he doesn't say. These Gunters were old high school friends, just like me and H. And all 5 of them had enrolled in GSS's, that's his company, Disadvantaged Youth Empowerment Program, which provided free only headsets and Oasis consoles to orphaned and or destitute kids around the world.
It was for this reason that I felt I was entitled to know every single thing about them.
I'd given them that, so it was time for them to give me all of their data. I took some deal that I'd struck with these children without their consent or knowledge.
Taking some more live brain scans.
Now look, the morality creeps back in, and this is, again, an instance of where Wade is just being written as a wildly inconsistent character who has no static sense of what goodness could possibly entail. Because it's at this point, not the point before he did this, that I suddenly felt like a jerk for eavesdropping on their conversation. So what I take from that is that there's something in what he just found out that makes him a jerk that wasn't there prior. It's like if he didn't do the perving, he wouldn't know he was bad.
I think...
Which is like a peeping Tom saying like, oh, well, you know, I wouldn't have been peeping if there weren't any naked people in the locker room. Like, it's sort of... It's like
I wouldn't have been peeping if I wasn't certain they didn't want me to. I think it's less involved than that. I think it's that he only is able to critically analyse from a moral perspective the thing before he did last.
Okay, it's like that Two Ronnie sketch where they're doing the mastermind question.
Exactly, answering the question before. Yeah, where he's like, he can't see the problem with it when he's doing it, but then as soon as he does any new thing, he knows the last one was off, and then so when he does another thing, he'll realise that going and looking at their data was wrong as well.
Something that he and the robot Robin Williams therapist should probably dive into in the future. So just sit with this. He's had this experience. Now there's a full kind of moral arc here. He's gone through, I'm doing something, seems fine. I've found out some information. It's recontextualised that. That maybe was the wrong thing to do. Maybe in this situation you'd be thinking, okay, I shouldn't be so quick to violate these basic principles of human decency.
So he backs out of
he quits the Oasis, he sells the company to Oxfam.
He just, he
goes fucks off to embryo space. Life. I stood there for a few seconds, staring down at her avatar. This is Lohengrin now. Yeah. He's actually left the chat room. So, sorry, I should have clarified that the badness that he feels extends up to the point of, I'll leave the chat room.
Right, okay.
I've done my part, I'll leave it now.
I found out what they were going to do with it.
He's finished.
Yeah.
In every sense of the term. Now he's back in the basement or wherever the fuck they were, and he's just sort of looming at Lohengrin invisibly.
Good, that's much better.
I stood there for a few seconds,
creepy,
staring down at her avatar, pretending to wrestle with my conscience.
Then
I went ahead and pulled up Lohengrin's private account profile to find out her real-world identity. What's going on? Like, what is going on?
Do you know the word for me is pretending. That is it.
But there's no need to pretend to your own. Like, he's not being honest with us on any level. Like, Ernest is not being honest with us about who Wade is. Wade is not being honest to himself about who he is.
Nope.
There's just, I can't follow a character who is this constantly just pinballing around, like, and has no fixed worldview.
Bad about having perved on these people.
That the only thing to do.
What I did was I backed out and perved on one specific
in
person,
much more detail.
Much worse.
Now, this, you'll have seen me ready my laptop here because we're soon to switch over to a different mode of discussion, prior to which it might be a good idea to get in our middle section. So I'm going to say that before we find out what he's going to discover in Lohengrin's, let me just specify, let me see if it says private profile information. We'll pause for, I think you've got some writing advice for us.
I do. Now,
who have you gone for this week? One of the Steinbeck or...
One of the greats. One of the all-time greats. But I thought about
Billy
Miller.
Shakes.
No. He didn't write many tips.
Does he not?
No, unfortunately
Greedy.
not. I know. Well, and that's why he's the only fucker from around there. You know. No. Now I remember last week you were a bit aggrieved really by this section. It really lowered your mood.
It did.
It made you furious.
It made me quite annoyed.
And I think that was because there was a sense of Chuck really going violently off track.
Yeah, this is Chuck Wendig.
The internet's Chuck Wendig of
author of books such
of Insecure website, terribleminds.com. And author of
books.
Many Star Wars books that
many
no
weird
one
tweets.
has read. Many weirder tweets. You'll remember that there were such classics as Eat Bees and then Stop Eating Bees.
Really good.
And I think that you were mostly annoyed because you want
I want
Chuck.
to get to the real meat and potatoes.
You want to love Chuck, and you want to get to the core of why he's such a good and acclaimed writer.
Because he knows what he's doing, and it seems like he's actively hiding it from you.
From you specifically, yeah. Now you'll be pleased to know that this week we get back on track with some real advice.
Okay, actionable.
Definitely.
Cool. That's
definitely. I mean, some of it would require significant life changes.
That's fine. I mean, if that's what it takes to be one of the great writers, which, as you know, has long been my ambition.
Okay, well, then tip 14 is don't ever look at the news.
Oh, like Wade?
Don't ever look at the news exactly like Wade. Weird how they seem to share
weird, isn't it?
Strange. Anyway, because, like Fiona Apple said, this world is bullshit. It is. It's all bullshit. It'll just make you sad, and then you won't write. You'll just sit around eating cheesecake and offering up stupid writing advice on the internet. It's a bit of...
That's a bit meta.
The news is dumb. The world is dumb. Retreat into your land of unicorns where it's safe.
Okay, that's cool. So all writing should be disconnected from any kind of political reality.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to...
That's interesting.
And if you look at all of the great texts...
They have nothing to say about anything.
Nothing to say about the world
it's really good,
around them. Yeah, it's all completely abstracted. Yeah. And at the top of that list will be his works.
For sure. Well, I haven't read them.
Which for sure say nothing. Tip 15 is read the work aloud.
Okay. But we're doing that classic thing of giving me whiplash between the different vibes.
Yeah.
That is fine advice. Lots of people say to do that.
Let's see how you feel by the end of the tip. He's got more to say about it than you might have thought. I am just going to ask, because it's a little paragraph. Just don't interrupt. And you have to try not to put me off as well, because I want to get to the end.
I won't look at you. I'll keep my eyes closed.
That's possibly worse. Reading the work aloud lets you hear the rhythm, the flow, the inconsistencies. It'll help you catch any awkwardness or word choice problems. It'll also help you catch the witches. The witches are coming, but they are easily confounded by stories. They are held wrapped by them, and as you mesmerise them with narrative, you can kill them and take their hats and wands. Fucking witches, man. Every writer's enemy, those witches. If witches are not your enemy, you're not a writer. And no, I don't mean cool witches. I don't mean your friend Zelda, who's a witch and who casts spells to protect your third floor condo from bad spirits. I mean ancient fucking witches. I mean eldritch crone hags who are eternal and who have haunted the earth from its earliest pyroclastic days. Those witches.
So the witches are back. That's good. Because I think we'd remarked, I don't remember which episode, but we were like, oh, why drop an idea? So I thought maybe that was a meta bit of advice where it's know when to stop, leave them wanting more with the witches. Yeah. But Chuck's saying, leave them wanting less, and then give them more nonetheless. Give them more regardless.
Yeah, exactly. He's saying, take possibly the single best piece of advice you've said so far, and just fuck it.
Just ruin it.
Just kill it. Just stamp on it.
No, it was really cool, and my favourite thing about it was concise as well.
Yeah,
it
to the point,
had to say and it got out.
Which I think was one of his points earlier. Point number 16: when in doubt, pterodactyls and Frankensteins.
Barking. Everyone who is this person always talks about things like pterodactyls. There's you could make a list of the kind of hallmarks of this quirky guy, and pterodactyls would be on there. But apparently witches are going to be on there as well.
Witches are right in the middle.
There seems to be a shared dictionary of images that they draw from, that they are imagine mentioning this at a time like now. I'm gonna.
Stuck in your story? Just throw in some pterodactyls and Frankensteins. Always peps up a dull story. It's funny that he says that because I know for a fact that he's someone who would say Frankenstein is.
He's probably doing that to bait out the
so that he can do a joke about how actually Frankenstein was a witch.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Point 17. Scream at ponds and rivers.
Scream at them.
Water contains mystical properties and is also where the muses hide. When you are passing by any body of water, yell at it and command it to inspire you. Yell at it until you are frothy and hoarse. Demand the muses rise from murky turbidity and deliver inspiration unto you. That or a sword. Sometimes muses hand out swords.
Okay. Another useless bit of advice. Like, there's nothing in that, is there? There's nothing at all.
Hang on, let me just double check. From the beginning, scream at ponds and rivers, water contains mystical properties.
If you followed two or more pieces of this advice, you'd be arrested that same day.
And rightly so.
You'd
need to be. Point 18, quite similar to point 16.
Yeah.
Starts with the same refrain. When in doubt,
witches.
Cats grant wishes.
Oh yeah, that is the same.
That's true. That's why authors always have cats, because those are the cats that granted those authors their wishes to become authors. I have 2 cats, and they're from a rare breed called...
Go
on.
Writing cats.
No.
Text cat.
You thought... You're actually doing something better. They're from a rare breed called dogs.
Oh, very funny.
They're pretty weird looking, but whatever.
That is funny because they're different animals. Yeah. I think that's the joke.
I'll do one. What do you want? One more?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, sure.
The more we do now, the less we have to do in future.
Well, exactly. I don't want to
squeezing my fists into a ball.
I don't want to ruin it all now because otherwise there might not be for next time.
All out of the way.
Listen to Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau said, "Write while the heat is in you," which is another way of saying Thoreau ate bees. And so it's time to start with eating bees thing again.
It's not.
I know we were past this, but now we're not. So num some bees. That's what Thoreau was doing when he fucked off to the woods. He was destroying trees, looking for bees and honey to eat. Thoreau was a bear. What I'm saying is
Thoreau was a bear.
Be a bear. Part-time at least. A werebear. A lycanthropic ursine. Margaret Atwood is also a lycanthropic bear person because she's Canadian. And all Canadians are lycanthropes. But I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know.
I promise you were, Chuck, and I don't even know it now. You told me nothing.
What? No, hang on. You can't have known about Thoreau being a bear already.
It's not true, is the thing. So you can tell me something I don't know, but only insofar as it is true will I accept it as new knowledge.
Is that?
That's
if
nonsense.
you'd said before, I would have got. Yeah. I probably would have gone to a genuine authority.
It's really unfortunate that you didn't.
I didn't.
You went to Chuck Wendig.
But anyway,
he just talks about bees and witches. You must have noticed that most of them are about bees and witches and
I did, but I thought that's what you were looking for.
No, I was looking for.
I thought it was going to be a nice foil.
I was hoping we'd give our readers actionable, implementable tips.
Oh fuck!
To sort of counterbalance the bullshit that we're reading.
Oh, right.
Because unfortunately, some people might start eating bees now, and that's on you. And
it's Chuck. Not on me because I'm not saying to eat bees. I don't think.
Okay.
I try and write sometimes, and I don't eat. I specifically don't eat bees.
Okay. Well, something to give a pop to.
Oh my god! Fuck.
Now let's leave Chuck for now.
We've got 6 more, and we'll do those next time. I think.
Okay.
But some of them are a bit long, so maybe we'll only do a couple. Yeah.
Just draw this out.
String it out because it's good.
Let's see if we can get him on the show.
Isn't your doctor always telling you need a bit more salt? Like, get the blood pressure up. So there you go.
You've got to. Now, fade back in to Lohengrin standing there, innocent, about to be violated through the means of invading the personal, private data.
She's being fucked by the super user abilities granted to Wade by the Robes of Anorak.
I justified violating her right to privacy as an Oasis user the way I always did.
Go on.
By telling myself it was necessary.
Oh, it wasn't.
Before I accepted Lohengrin's help in return for $1 billion, I had to find out as much as I could about her.
No.
To get a sense of who I would be dealing with.
I was that in the small print.
But that was a bullshit excuse and I knew it.
Oh, okay.
What it really boiled down to was plain old curiosity. I was curious about who Lohengrin was in the real world.
Horny freak.
And I had the ability to find out. So I did.
Wow. It's cool. It's good of Wade, but it's even better of Ernest to end one chapter with the declaration that I specifically haven't done this thing because I respect this person.
Yeah.
And then having disrespected her and her closest decided that now actually I am going to do this thing. But it's still it wasn't, but
now I'm going to read. There's quite a lot of just the text to get through here to set up a topic of discussion, and it was I would put it under the category of earnest wading into the discourse. And I don't want to spoil anything in advance for people who are still holding on to the last shred of hope that maybe this is going to be good, actually. But I'm going to tell you that his attempt at discourse has not gone well received across the board. Now, you'll see for reasons that will become clear that I've outsourced most of the critique of this particular attempt to game developer Kate Barrett talking to the Daily Dot author Anna Valens and a bunch of people on Twitter who are more qualified than I to share takes on this. But I think there's still something for us to discuss.
Cool.
Now, Lohengrin's real name was Skylar Castillo Adkins. According to her private user profile, she was an unmarried, important, 19-year-old, ticking Ernest's box. That's probably libelous. Ticking Wade's box. That was a simple error. Caucasian female.
If I didn't want people to make that error, I wouldn't make my protagonist so transparently.
I wouldn't write nerd porn or and perform it in front of audiences.
Avatar for myself, yeah.
She's a 19-year-old Caucasian female. She lives in the Duncanville, Texas stacks. Blah, blah, blah. It's a really rough neighborhood. Here's a real fucking, nod in the direction of just giving up on this whole premise of maybe Wade is a good guy. Since I'd already violated her privacy, I decided to go full on Big Brother and have a look at her headset feeds.
Oh, okay, cool.
This is a new concept, though, headset feeds. So we sign our new terminology klaxon. There were 10 wide-angle surveillance cameras mounted on the exterior of each Oni headset, which allowed the wearer to keep an eye on their body and its surroundings from inside the Oasis. I'm going to do a little game here. I've just invented this on the spot. I'm going to do... You ever heard of blankety blank?
Yeah.
Blankety blank. I'm going to blankety blank out some words in this sentence and just see if you can figure out what I might have blanked. The blanks of blank gave me access to a secret sub-menu on every Oni user's account where I could monitor the video feeds coming from their cameras. Any guesses?
Now...
blanks
it's not
of blanks. It's a 5-letter.
Right.
And then the next one's 6 letters.
Okay. Any...
It's a clothes.
It's a clothes.
It's a type of clothes.
It's not the cloak.
The cape of the perverts.
The fucking shawl
the tunic of nonsense.
Oh, wait, it's not the robes of Anorak, is it?
Super is. So with the robes of Anorak, not only one, kind of upside of the robes of Anorak, I guess, you could argue, is that, well, from the perspective of not Wade, from the perspective of humanity, is that most of the mischief they enable, where mischief stands in for crime, has been largely situated within the digital world. You can kill people with them, but it's not going to kill them IRL. Well, maybe it could. But now it turns out that the robes of Anorak also have this secret sub-menu, which is a fucking cool way of phrasing it.
That is very good. I like to throw that in straight away,
surveil people all the time in their own homes via 10 cameras mounted to their body.
Yeah, that's bad, isn't it? That's bad. It might at this point just be quicker for Ernest to tell us what can he objectively not to do with the robes of Anorak.
He would never allow you to pin him down on that because it's crucial to the character of Wade that he always has the answer
the possibility.
Or the ability when it comes up. So if there were a situation in future where you needed 11 cameras, to be honest, there would indeed be a secret one discovered.
From what I know about the last book, he was the last person on Earth who needed this because he already, before having the super user abilities granted upon him by the robes of Anorak, had an answer immediately at hand for everything that he needed.
It's just gone. It's, somehow, the monomyth is about a character starts with some form of deficiency or lesson to learn, and in the end they've learned that lesson and become, he calls it the master of two worlds, the original place they came from, the place they've travelled to in the kind of psycho metaphorical space. In the case of Ready Player One, and now seemingly ploughing ahead in Ready Player Two, Wade becomes not the master of two worlds, but twice the master of the one world he was already the master of. His character has not developed; it has compounded and become more Wade-like with every lesson, quote unquote, learnt, and every character development, quote unquote, achieved. He just becomes the maximum amount of Wade you could possibly be.
He is a sort of a Zeus figure, isn't he? Of just like, if you have the ability to just do whatever the fuck you want, like, he just chaotic. Will.
He simply will.
This is the futuristic version of I'm gonna become a swan and I'm gonna fuck you.
Pretty much. So basically, he's got this way of seeing. I had the ability to spy on people in their homes. This was one of GSS's uglier secrets. Not the ugliest. That's Ready Player 3.
No. It's not quite as bad as when we harvested organs and did testing on the disabled.
There would be riots and class action suits galore if our customers ever found out about it.
Yeah.
But these were exceptional circumstances, I assured myself. Basically, he does this. He pulls up Skylar, who is Lohengrin, the Oza Zero. Her headset feeds, and he's inside this trailer where she lives, and it sucks. Like, she's living in extreme poverty by herself. She has a thin, frail-looking body, which is stretched out on a worn mattress in the back of this old, like, Airstream trailer that's in the stacks in Texas. Remember his concept of, like, people built really high?
Yeah.
Because America's quite small. Her gaunt features seem to conflict with the pleasant, dreamlike expression on her face. And she's got a robot to put a Snoopy blanket over her for reasons that remain unclear.
That is very sad. That is an amazingly sad image.
Discourse begins. My chest felt hollow. I closed all of the VidFeed windows and scanned Skylar's user profile for more information about her. Her school records included a scan of her birth certificate, which revealed another surprise, one I think we all saw coming. She'd been DMAB, designated male at birth. Discovering this minor detail didn't send me spiralling into a sexual identity crisis, the way it probably would have back when I was younger. Thanks to years of surfing the OnlyNet, I now knew what it felt like to be all kinds of different people having all different kinds of sex. I'd experienced sex with women while being another woman, and sex with men as both a woman and a man.
What?
I know. So that puts to bed our previously suspected concept.
Maybe that was a development. Maybe after a couple of years he was like,
finally,
fine.
MM is permissible.
Is on the table.
I'd done playback. I hate that expression. I'd done playback of several different flavours of straight and gay and non-binary sex, just out of pure curiosity, and I come away with the same realisation that most Oni users came away with, and this is now the third most highlighted part of the book. Passion was passion, and love was love regardless of who the participants involved were, or what sort of body they were assigned at birth. Pause for a moment. There is something about that struck me, and probably has struck you, as quite strangely written, and not in the normal way that Ready Player World is strangely written. It had, for me, a kind of congratulatory air about, it's the birthmark thing again, right?
Yeah, 100. About, it's exactly the same.
About like hats off for me, Wade, who found out that a trans person existed and still would fuck them. Like, that's basically the level that we're operating at.
And I think, again, the other things that are weird about it are, number one, why? Like, why are you wading into this bit of discourse? Like, what is your reason for doing so here? Like, I'm not saying that...
I think I have the answer to that question.
Good. Okay,
we'll
fine.
Circle back.
Second, though, is, like, if your argument is, well, I would have thought that it was gross, but then I did it all myself, and because I've now done it, I know it's okay.
Yeah.
That's not... character growth, is it?
It's not character growth. It's also like not a sensitive way of handling the inclusion of a trans character who seemingly so far exists only as like an instrument to show Wade in an even better light than before.
And like very specifically as like object of sexual fascination.
Yeah. Now I was, having these thoughts, and I thought, well, I can't have been the only person who thought this, and there'll be people with more experience and explanations of these phenomena than I to unpack them. And here we turn to an article called Ready Player 2 Thrashed on Twitter over transphobic non-binary sex passage. Game developer Kate Barrett previously parodied, and this sounds so good, I don't think I've heard this before. She parodied Ready Player 1 with a video game called Ready Player Fuck, where players star as the ultimate geek in a virtual world full of, quote, exasperating pop culture references and stuff I stole from models-resource.com, which sounds so good. I think we need to try and play it on stream. Barrett, who criticised the new book's passage, told the Daily Dot that Ready Player 2 fails to accurately depict queer trans experiences, partly because Wade is so obsessed with himself and his cisgender heterosexual male identity. This is a quote from Barrett. Well, from the get-go, we learn he's stalking a girl and looking at her past, her school records no less. How deep did he go?
Birth certificate.
Yeah. The rest of the passage suffers from the exact same problem as much of the first book, where our protagonist makes everything about him, Barrett said. He's talking about how he's a stand-up dude for not being revolted by her gender. He goes over and over all his solipsistic thoughts about himself, all the sex he's had, minus any details about when and why, only that it happened. Meanwhile, Klein's narrative suffers from some, quote, weird and poorly researched errors, such as the term DMAB instead of AMAB, or assigned male at birth.
Yeah.
This is particularly obvious with the phrase straight and gay and non-binary sex, which I just read, and which someone on Twitter did such a good tweet that I included. The 3 kinds of sex: gay, straight, and non-binary, which is funny. Klein does not just stretch the reader's suspension of disbelief that Wade has changed. He also shows his own limitations with writing about the trans experience. He clearly didn't ask or talk to any non-binary or trans people when he wrote this, and it's overly fetishistic, Barrett told the Daily Dot. Now, we mentioned your first point was like, why include it in this sense? And I think I'm broadly in favour of Ernest writing a trans character if he wants to. I think it demands a level of detail and sensitivity that I haven't seen much of in his writings thus far. And perhaps the why he's done it answer is found in Ready Player One in a passage I completely forgot about that someone posted. Artemis, Arthremis, and Parzival are having a chat before they've met.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this voice for Artemis and this voice for Parzival, so it's very clear.
Cool.
I'm sort of subscribing to the gender binary here, but this is Ready Player One we're talking about. That is, if I am a woman, are you a woman? It's not your turn. I think they're doing like a ask each other questions thing. Fine. How well do you know H? Who's been my best friend for 5 years. Now spill it. Are you a woman?
What?
And by that, I mean, are you a human female who has never had a sex change operation? That's pretty specific. Answer the question. I am and always have been a human female. And that's the end of the section. So perhaps it's in light of this, it's overtly transphobic section in Ready Player One that he's gone for a sort of second swing and a miss in Ready Player Two. I think it's unfortunate because what I think Ernest, this is projection, but I think it's borne out by other comparisons where we do know what authors think about these things. In the same way that when J.K. Rowling is criticised for characters like Cho Chang, in the same way that I think she gets so defensive about very valid and quite often good faith criticisms of books that the people who are criticising them like, she takes away, well, people are just so difficult these days. People are always trying to shut down the discourse, and I should be allowed as an author to get, to do what I want, to say what I want. I think that the unfortunate side effect of the backlash to things like this is that what Ernest will think is, oh, fine, well, I'll never write another trans character then. Fine, if that's what you want. It's a real, throw. And to be honest, it might be best good in that case.
Yeah.
But the problem with that, I think, is that if your attempt at inclusivity fucks up, you don't blame inclusivity for the fuck up. You blame your attempt.
Well, no, you shouldn't.
Yes, you shouldn't.
People will.
Yes,
people will.
Exactly.
And I think that is the problem, is that, I kind of understand and broadly agree with you on this idea of it's a good idea that there should be more representation of trans people and non-binary people and all sorts of protected and marginalized groups in as many popular works of fiction as possible.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that those should be indiscriminate if they're going to be as poor, selfish and offensive as Ernest going to make them. This is my point about Ernest and why are you doing this is the reason that he is doing it is to cover his ass, having already outed himself as straightly
at best very misguided about some issues that when did Ready Player One come out? I mean, it's not ancient history.
No,
it's not the case that we weren't having these discussions as a culture at that point.
And
it's quite online,
and it's very, very specifically turfy language as well. Is it not literally
it's
just
almost
adult human female, right?
We're missing adult because she is in fact not
a child. Yeah, oh good. another
makes it better, right?
Another layer of protection for Ernest there. Yeah, right. Is that the issue is that if the inclusion is so that you can get people off of your back and you're not even going to bother to do it in a sensitive and informed way, then actually, I think it probably is best that he doesn't ever write another trans character again.
Probably so. I think there are two sort of competing things that we're trying to say, and that I think the left articulates in sometimes confusing ways, which are more representation is good, but that doesn't mean just any representation is good. It has to be more representation that meets a very, very low baseline of sensitivity and basic human respect. And the thing that I see with backlashes against authors who make these really bad and disrespectful attempts at inclusivity, especially when it seems quite clearly here to be calling back and trying to right these wrongs, is that they'll just be like, fine, well, fuck inclusivity as a concept. And it's very unfortunate, and I would say probably detrimental overall. Like if I've done it again, if Ernest could be made to understand why this sucks, would it be better?
Fundamentally, he cannot.
Yeah,
that's the issue, right? Is that if he were able to, then he would have done from the last time.
Yeah, you'd think he would have checked with a few people.
There's no reason why you shouldn't assume that a person who is being paid, let's face it, millions of dollars for their books before they're even written, it should therefore have the responsibility to make sure that what they're putting in their book is like marginally, even to the barest minimum standard, like A, inoffensive, and B, is like researched. Like he has put more research into games that have the number 7
than he has trans
into the like literal lives of trans people that he's writing about in a kind of sexually objectifying way, to make him and his character both seem slightly less odious than they did in the last book.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable section that I'm sure this is the last time that will crop up. Some Twitter responses that amused me. I fuck anything that moves, so I can't be transphobic is paraphrasing, but sure is a thing written in English in the book Ready Player 2. Endlessly entertained by the Ready Player 2 concept of non-binary sex, which I assume is just sex of any kind between two people named Rowan. And my favourite, Ready Player 3, and then a quote. I tried non-binary sex. That is sex without a VR headset on a few times. And very good. Very good tweet. Now, diving back in, there's more. There's more to this concept.
Oh, God.
We learned that Skylar legally changed her gender to female when she was 16. A few months after she received her first Oni headset, which also alarm-belled for me because one of the concepts that TERFs online have is about like trans contagion. The idea that like the kids saw a trans person once and that made them trans. Now
they're going to trans.
It does
themselves.
sound like he's saying the Oni made her trans, which is a dubious claim.
I'm more worried about how far back these camera logs go.
Around the same time, now we've got some new terminology coming up, so get ready. She changed her avatar's sex classification to gender. This is the O with a slash in it from like Scandinavian languages, which I didn't know how to pronounce. So I watched a YouTube video that said it's like the O in word, but you make an even rounder sound, so it's like so it's gender.
Right, okay.
Which is catchy, if nothing else. A brand new option GSS had added due to popular demand. People who identified as gender were individuals who chose to experience sex exclusively through their Oni headsets, and who also didn't limit themselves to experiencing it as a specific gender or sexual orientation. Coming out as gender became incredibly common in the wake of the Oni's release. For the first time in human history, anyone 18 years of age or older could safely and easily experience sex with any gender and as any gender. This tended to alter their perception of gender identity and fluidity in profound ways. It certainly altered mine, and I was certain it had done the same thing for every other Oni user with even a mildly adventurous spirit.
How had it altered yours, Wade?
Remember, he wasn't physically sick when he heard that there was a trans person.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So he did really well. He didn't say that he was no longer interested.
You're right. No, you're
sex.
right. Sorry, my mistake.
Thanks to the Oasis neural interface, which is, I think, one of the... I reckon if I Control F for that phrase, or thanks to the Oni, thanks to GSS, thanks to me, Wade, that it would be a billion results.
Yep.
Your gender and your sexuality were no longer constrained by or confined to the physical body you happen to be born into, which seems to me to be like he's claiming that it was by virtue of the Oni that being transgender became actually possible.
Yeah,
because he said
Ernest has managed to congratulate himself
for coming up with the idea of transgenderism.
Yeah.
But that is what this says, right? Let me just read it again.
No, that is what it says.
Thanks to the Oni, your gender and sexuality were no longer constrained or confined to the physical body you happen to be born into. That's already not the case.
No.
That's already just
it's
completely not the case. What are you talking about? It's an
amazing way to out yourself as not accepting
and also
trans
just
people.
Profoundly ignorant on the issue that you're trying to shoehorn into your very well-paid book. The chapter is almost over. He pervs into her mother's history. She died of heart failure 2 years ago. Skylar's been living by herself, and when he glances back, he's like, "Oh, I've probably done enough perving for today." He glances back, and Lohengrin's eyes flicker open, implying that she's now like bodily present in the avatar space with him.
He has to like quickly shuffle away all the digi files, closing all his tabs.
I used my robes of anorak to cover her head. One of my just normal user abilities that any robes can
do,
but mine did especially well. Maybe with a kind of foil shine like a legendary Pokemon. Her avatar stood up and began to walk toward the exit. I was standing directly in her path. This is the end of the chapter. Just picture this. You know, we've talked before about how he pictures a lot of stuff in cinematic terms, which is something I don't think is necessarily bad for a writer. No. But I do think it's bad when your book has already been made into a film and now you're just trying to do that again.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing the storyboarding element for them.
This is big storyboarding energy. Her avatar stood up and began to walk toward the exit. I was standing directly in her path.
This is bullet points.
Instead of stepping out of her way, I folded my arms and assumed an ominous wizard pose. Then I made my avatar visible once again.
What the fuck is an ominous wizard pose?
It's just crazy.
That's so funny.
Wow.
Folding your arms is only ominous if you are a wizard.
Yeah. So the title morality of this episode applies, as you can see, in a multifaceted way, not only to the in-world morality, but to the out-of-world morality of Ernest bungling his, maybe, for some people, his chance at redeeming what was some pretty fucked up,
some really bad, really
transphobic
awful,
stuff in Ready Player One. And
that section kind of threw me even more than not just
the Ready Player One section.
Yeah,
that's so stark.
Like not just by that, but also by the actual tone of the way in which Wade is asking these questions, like angrily almost, which is not just from your reading,
horny as well,
but is from from like just the words, like the demanding. Now answer the question, like whatever. Like it's just it just betrays a certain like aggression towards these things.
Someone on Twitter described it as like emblematic of the problem of what can sometimes be well-intentioned, but ultimately just like wildly wide of the mark attempts at inclusivity like this. And the thing that I think fucks it up so much, apart from the facts of the matter and just getting so much wrong in such an offensive and lazy way, is this idea of how I think he would react to the criticism. He's not, I assume, going to take this in good faith and be like, you know what, I fucked up like that. That sucks. I've done it twice now and it sucked both times. But it's just this idea that like he will think that people are just like scolding him for woke points, when actually this is an incredibly clear example of you got basic facts wrong, empirical facts about a well-established set of experiences and phenomena and pieces of terminology that you could have just Googled. Like the conflation of this largely non-existent online presence of people who are just looking to be offended by stuff will blend with this instance where this is just objectively a correct criticism to level at this text, and by people like how I again imagine Ernest to be. But if not Ernest, a whole host of people will come away and being like, Twitter were just trying to cancel that book. Why? Because they're just woke. It's just very, very frustrating, and it's a shame that Ernest has done it again.
Yeah,
it's a bad chapter. It's a bad chapter. Like it's bad artistically. It's bad politically. It's bad just from a basic level of trying not to fuck up some stuff that you just don't need to fuck up, about people who don't need more stuff fucked up for them by people, especially white cis heterosexual people. in this level of authorial power for reasons that, as you can see, continually evade us, but which sadly nonetheless are the fact. Now it's going to be one of those like wrenching the wheels of the Titanic,
doing a huge U-turn. Yeah.
There is more book to cover. I can only assume that there's nothing as egregiously transphobic left in it because I haven't seen much. When I googled about it, this was the passage that everyone was referencing.
Okay, well, I mean, at least that's one saving grace.
And maybe he's going to do a thing where he's like, "Oh, I was so wrong about all that." Me, Ernest. He's going to do a little author's note at the end.
Maybe.
Fingers crossed. In the meantime, we'll be back in 2 weeks with the next chapter. Who knows what number it is? I've lost track fully at this point. But before then, there are a bunch of ways that we can carry on. Not necessarily this conversation, but conversations in general. And Declan will tell you what they are while I drink from my over-large water bottle.
That is, may I say...
It's the colours of the trans flag
colours, isn't it? I promise that's true. That's not just us doing some signalling.
But if you wanted to clap, then Wade would be very grateful.
Or, like snap your fingers. So, the hub for everything is shame.city. That's the website.
People are calling it the hub for everything online.
Yeah. Some people are saying that you basically stole that from Reddit. But
whoops. They changed theirs. Have you seen it? It's called it used to be called the front page of the internet. They changed it to dive into anything, which is much worse.
Sounds like an imperative that I don't want to. So it's had a big overhaul in the last couple of months, and it kind of is the place to go for everything. If you're looking for things that are more specific, you can find us on Twitter for this show at Big Bad Books. You can find at Shame City Gang with, again, our Twitter hub.
Yeah.
In the alternate weeks that we do this show, we do a different show called That's a Shame, where we've been covering all sorts of terrible things, such as Nerd Thigh Strangling, Ancient Giant Trees, R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet. Dogging. That was wow, what a classic episode.
We investigate all of these topics and more.
Yeah.
Every other Sunday.
So that's called That's a Shame, and you can find at That's a Shame cast on Twitter, or you can find That's a Shame basically anywhere that you can listen to podcasts.
Shame.city/TAS.
If you'd like to literally engage in conversations with us, you can find us at shame.city/Discord. Come and join in. Lots of fun to be had. And you can also find us live. Most, but not all days a week. I'm not even going to tell you which ones.
Well, I will. It's Monday to Thursday, usually. Over at twitch.tv/ShameCity. With one Y now.
Yeah.
We've changed it.
Or shame.city/Twitch. You could do it either way around.
Try both and see which one you prefer. Until 2 weeks' time, when I'm sure, I think we can both agree, Ernest's going to redeem himself.
He's going to claw it back.
He's super not. I've been Isaac. You've been...
I've been Declan.
Keep him where we can see him, Wade.
Please.